Hello there, and thank you for watching this week's Weatherquest Farming Forecast. Just as a reminder, you can now listen to the Farming Forecast as a podcast. The link for that is available on our Twitter and Facebook feeds. Well, it's been a hot, dry and sunny couple of days, and it looks like it will continue for the next couple of days as well. But will it continue after that? We'll discuss that and the rest of the forecast for the next 4 weeks in a few moments. But first, let's just take a quick look at how the rainfall for June so far is panning out. So here's a few selected weather stations across East Anglia, showing the comparison between the rainfall across the whole of spring, that's March, April, May 2020, compared to June so far this year, so the past 3 weeks. And you can see that many places already have seen the same, if not more, rain than they saw throughout the entire spring 2020. There's obviously been quite a few heavy showers, thunderstorms kicking off over the past week or so. We had that more prolonged spell of rain on Wednesday night into Thursday as well. So it's been quite a change from spring into summer. It's been more unsettled, definitely wetter so far. And particularly some stations, you see Marham recorded 43 millimetres of rain throughout the whole of spring. In June so far, the past 3 weeks, it's already recorded 99.4 millimetres. So over double the amount of rain that it recorded throughout the entire spring. So it really does highlight how wet it's been over the past couple of weeks. It has calmed down though over the past few days. We've had this area of high pressure building in from the south, and that's been bringing hot, dry and relatively quiet conditions across the south. The jet stream though has been quite active across parts of Ireland and Western Scotland. That's been bringing some quite heavy and persistent rain at times. You can see that here over the next few days. This is Wednesday into Thursday, that jet stream there beginning to ease off, and actually the high pressure that's been dominating in the south begins to build in for the rest of the country as well. By the weekend there, you can see this next area of jet stream beginning to push in a deep upper trough to the northwest of the British Isles. So it looks like it is going to turn more unsettled by Friday and into Saturday and the weekend as that jet stream becomes a bit more active across the UK. So taking a closer look at the forecast day by day, this is Wednesday morning. High pressure out to the east of the British Isles, low pressure to the northwest, and in between there's that frontal boundary bringing outbreaks of rain across Ireland and parts of Western Scotland. See, through the day that begins to ease off. By the end of the day there's just still a few showers around in parts of northern and western Britain and Ireland, but elsewhere it's largely dry, and it actually will stay largely dry throughout much of southern Britain as well throughout the day. Hot as well, with highs of 30 or 31 in some parts of central and southern England. So another hot, dry day in the south, and it looks like it will continue much in that same vein through Thursday as well. You can see high pressure continuing to ridge, leading to dry conditions and hot conditions in the south through Thursday. Becoming more unsettled from the west though, you can see this area of low pressure coming in, this frontal boundary across Ireland and Scotland, bringing heavy showers, showery outbreaks of rain, perhaps some thunder in there as well during Thursday afternoon. Overnight into Friday, and then by Friday morning, it might be that that's beginning to creep in to parts of central and southern England as well. So slowly becoming more unsettled from the west by Friday morning, and then continuing to do so through Friday daytime itself as well. You can see here those areas of rain pushing eastwards across central and eastern Britain, that deep area of low pressure becoming established to the northwest. And actually once that front clears eastern Britain, that will actually bring some cooler and fresher feeling conditions in from the west, although there will be a scattering of showers, particularly in north and western Britain, but further south as well. So definitely becoming fresher feeling and cooler towards the weekend. Now this is one model's idea of how things look like they might start out next week looking like. So generally it looks like low pressure to the north of the British Isles, high pressure down in the Azores beginning to ridge into Spain, France, parts of southern England. But it looks like it will be a bit more changeable next week, that low pressure bringing showers, perhaps some longer spells of rain as well. You can see a few little areas of low pressure to the west going to try and push in, spread eastwards, bringing some more persistent rain at times. So generally a bit more changeable during the first half of next week, with that low pressure really sticking where it is and slowly clearing eastwards by the end of the week. Now in terms of how things look for the next 10 days or so, this is an ensemble forecast for Bedford, so the same models run a lot of different times and has slightly different ideas of how the rainfall will pan out, and you can get an idea of the most likely scenarios by looking at ensemble forecasts. So you can see today Wednesday and Thursday, and even into Friday morning, looks pretty much dry. There's no models really bringing any rainfall there, with that high pressure staying strongly where it is. By Friday afternoon, like I say earlier, we get those heavy showers moving in, followed by that area of low pressure towards the weekend. And then after that, really for the rest of next week and into next weekend and possibly the week after, looks like things are going to be a little bit more changeable. You can see there's lots more spikes and bits and pieces of rain in the forecast through much of that week. And this generally representative for southern and eastern England as a whole. Now, generally it looks like rainfall amounts are probably going to be quite small, but there are a few spikes here and there showing that there could be some slightly larger rainfall amounts. So particularly Friday afternoon, once we get those heavy thundery showers coming through, it is going to be quite hit and miss, but a few localized spots that see the odd heavy or thundery downpour could potentially be looking at 10-15 millimeters of rain in a relatively short space of time. So it is going to be quite hit and miss. Many areas probably could only end up seeing a mil or two, so quite hit and miss during Friday afternoon. And in those sorts of situations when it's hit and miss like that, and it's going to be quite localized rainfall, the best way of keeping on top of the forecast and seeing the most likely risk for your area of seeing rain is to speak to one of our forecasters on our forecast hotline. So they're available every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on 09065 77 7675. The calls cost £1.50 a minute plus any network access charges, and they're constantly getting new data and new model runs throughout the day, so be able to give you up-to-date information on anything you need, from rainfall likelihood to amounts, temperatures, wind speeds, anything like that. They're your best bet at getting the most accurate forecast. So looking ahead a bit further out to the middle part of July, this here is a map showing the chance of a dry day for a number of different regions across the UK. Now, there's been quite a few farmers calling on our phone line wanting to make hay, wanting to know if we're going to see a more prolonged, maybe 4 or 5 day period of conditions staying dry. So obviously we're staying dry through the early and middle part of this week, but you can see by Friday those green colours, that's showing a very low chance of a dry day beginning to become more dominant. So dry through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for much of the UK, apart from perhaps Wales and Scotland and some western areas, but by the weekend definitely becoming more unsettled. You can see there's not really a high chance of a dry day anywhere apart from perhaps far eastern parts of East Anglia, probably most likely of seeing the drier weather, but there's still the chance of some heavy thundery showers on Friday afternoon and into the weekend. So the most likely places of staying dry, but still the chance of rain in those areas as well. Then you can see the middle part of the week, it generally looks a bit changeable. There's a low chance either way of seeing the dry weather, but there's not a high chance of seeing a dry day really until the end of the week, and then onwards really through the first couple of weeks of July. We've got high pressure out to the south, beginning to want to try ridge in from the south, and that's generally going to lead to things quieting down in southern areas. So perhaps a higher chance of seeing a dry day from the end of next week and through the next couple of weeks after that for much of England, but further north and west, parts of Wales, Scotland, northern England, it does look a little bit more unsettled with low pressure trying to come around the top of that high. So a bit of a north-south split for the rest of July after the end of next week. In terms of temperatures, so obviously we've seen some quite warm temperatures for the next couple of days. You can see that highlighted there in those dark reds. This is the likelihood of seeing above average temperatures. So very high chance for the next couple of days across the board, right the way across the UK. There's going to be warmer than average temperatures. As I mentioned earlier, by the weekend and into the first part of next week, that low pressure coming in will bring fresher feeling, cooler air, and actually there's quite a low chance of above average temperatures, perhaps even below average for some places during the early part of next week. Beyond that though, by the end of next week and into the next couple of weeks beyond that, as that high pressure ridges in from the south, as we increase the chance of a dry day, we also increase the chance of above average temperatures. It generally looks like things will be slightly above average for the first 2 or 3 weeks of that month from the end of next week onwards. So although it's going to be cooler and a bit more changeable next week, after that it does look like it might settle down a little bit with some increase in temperatures as well. So looking ahead for the rest of the monthly period through until the sort of 2nd or 3rd week of July. This is next week. As I said, that area of high pressure trying to ridge in from the south across France and parts of southern Britain and Ireland. Further east, those blue colours showing lower than average pressure, so a more unsettled feel to the weather for northern and eastern Europe. And although we're going to see that high pressure try to ridge in from the south, we do have quite an active jet stream. So this is the mean jet stream during next week, and it's quite an active westerly jet. So a lot of fronts trying to come in from the Atlantic. So it will be quite a wet week for some places, especially north and west. But with that high pressure ridging in from the south, it might just subdue some of the heaviest rainfall. And on balance, actually, in terms of the anomaly, it looks like it will be around or slightly below average for much of the UK, apart from those very northwestern areas where I think it could just be slightly wetter than average in places. That fairly similar across France, Spain, parts of the western Mediterranean as well, drier than average with that high pressure ridging in, but further north and east with that lower than average pressure, a much more unsettled feel to the weather across eastern and central Europe with above average rainfall for many places. Into the second week of July, that lower than average pressure signal looks to continue across eastern and central Europe. So it looks like it will stay quite unsettled there. Not a strong signal further west, but it does look like there might be a hint of high pressure continuing to ridge in from the south. You can see here the rainfall anomalies across the UK and France, generally around or slightly below average, and below average across Iberia as well. So western half of Europe generally seeing close to or slightly below average rainfall throughout the week, but by no means is it looking like it's likely to be a completely dry week. I think with that only quite weak high pressure, we will see some fronts coming through, so some rain at times, but generally below average, but continuing to stay above average further east and in central parts of Europe as well. In terms of temperatures, warmer than average across Western Europe, the UK, parts of Northern Europe, courtesy of that high pressure, but cooler than average for central and eastern areas with that low pressure there lingering throughout the period. Now, by the fourth week of the forecast period, that's the third week of July, there's a bit more of a sign of high pressure trying to ridge in from the west, across parts of the UK, Western Scandinavia and Western Europe as well. So becoming a bit more settled from the west, but still that persistent lower than average pressure signal across eastern and parts of central Europe. So still looking quite changeable and unsettled there. You can see in the rainfall anomalies, those greens showing below average rainfall for many central and eastern areas. But you will see, again, it's still that west-east split. The UK, France, British Isles, Ireland, Western Scandinavia, all seeing a slight hint of something just below average or close to average in terms of rainfall. So perhaps a little bit more settled and just touching below average rainfall amounts in the west. In terms of temperatures, still above average in Scandinavia, the UK and parts of Western Europe, and that cooler air still persisting in central and eastern areas with that low pressure there and below average temperatures overall throughout the week there. So to summarise, it's hot, dry and sunny in southern areas this week, but by the weekend heavy and perhaps thundery showers likely, and that changeable and more unsettled feel will continue into next week, and it will feel cooler as well. By the end of next week and pretty much through the first couple of weeks of July, perhaps into the third week of July, it does look like rainfall close to or below average, with temperatures just rising to above average as well. So thanks for watching this week's video. As ever, you can keep up to date with the day-to-day forecast for East Anglia and the British Isles on our social media, and you can listen to our daily podcast for East Anglia on our website as well.